Hello and welcome. My name is Lilimar Benitez and I'm one of the bilingual educational diagnosticians in the Hearst Euless Bedford Independent School District. And today we are going to be diving into dysgraphia, and we are going to learn that dysgraphia is definitely more than just bad handwriting. This video presentation is part of our dysgraphia outreach, which main purpose is provide staff, teachers, and parents with information regarding what dysgraphia is and what is not. Today, we'll briefly review the dysgraphia definition. We're going to discuss most common characteristics associated with dysgraphia and look at writing samples to understand how those characteristics present. Let's get started. Dysgraphia is definitely more than just messy handwriting. Handwriting is a very complex process. In order to produce legible handwriting, specific skills and processes are needed. This visual illustrates the processes that handwriting entails. As we go through this presentation, you will gain a better understanding on how these processes explain the struggles of students with dysgraphia. Let's start by looking at the definition. This definition comes straight from the handbook, from the Dyslexia Handbook. The Dyslexia Handbook was revised in 2018 and now includes a chapter, Chapter 5, that has all the information available regarding dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is defined as a neurodevelopmental disorder manifested by illegible and or inefficient handwriting due to difficulty with letter formation. Is the result of deficits in graphomotor function and or storing and retrieving orthographic codes. Secondary consequences may include problems with spelling and written expression. So let's break down this definition so we can gain a better understanding of what dysgraphia is. So when we look at dysgraphia, in very simple terms, dysgraphia is a difficulty to write or form letters. Students with dysgraphia present with either illegible or inefficient handwriting due to that difficulty with letter formation. When they struggle forming the letters or they struggle to remember how to form those letters, their handwriting gets impacted. Not necessarily all students with dysgraphia are going to have messy or sloppy handwriting. We will see some students that have somewhat legible handwriting, but then their letter formation takes a long time because it takes them a long time to remember how to form the letter. And that is due to difficulties with making the hand movements needed to form the letter and remembering how to form the letter. So in their brain, in their mind, they know what the letter looks like, but then there's kind of a misconnection between what they're seeing in their brain and how are they making the movements with their hand to form that letter. Then secondary consequences for dysgraphia could include spelling problems and writing problems, but not all students with dysgraphia are gonna struggle with spelling and written expression. We're gonna see some students with dysgraphia that their only struggle is gonna be handwriting, the quality of their handwriting. In simple terms, dysgraphia could be defined as difficulty to write or form letters. Students with dysgraphia may have difficulty writing legibly and at age-appropriate speed. Many children with dysgraphia also struggle to put their thoughts down on paper. Children with dysgraphia are able to express themselves very well orally, but they struggle transferring those ideas to paper. Because they find writing very difficult, they avoid doing so or tend to get easily frustrated with any writing task or demand. Students with dysgraphia have great verbal abilities and tend to do very well in all other areas that do not involve handwriting. They avoid handwriting because it's very frustrating and a difficult task for them. So let's recap and let's review what we have learned so far regarding the dysgraphia definition. So dysgraphia, the primary characteristic for dysgraphia, it's a difficulty with handwriting, which is caused by the difficulty of remembering the letters and remembering the movements, right? And how to form those letters to form the word. And secondary consequences may include difficulties with spelling and reading composition. There is a very important distinction between what handwriting and written expression entails. Handwriting has to do more with the quality of the handwriting, the letter formation, the spacing, how quickly and accurately the student can produce the letters. Written composition, written expression has to do more when they have to put those ideas down in paper, but more with the organization, when they're writing an essay, when they have to develop their ideas. So not all students with dysgraphia are going to struggle with the written expression part or the spelling. Those are secondary consequences. All the weaknesses that students with dysgraphia present are unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and effective classroom instruction. And this is very important. Students with dysgraphia, they do very well in other areas. Typically, they're very good at math. They're very good at reading. But they struggle in those areas that involve handwriting. Another very important part to consider is that they have been exposed to handwriting instruction. And this is something that I want to stress. The handwriting instruction piece is very important because we have to be able to rule out the lack of exposure. We have to be able to have documentation that supports that this student has been exposed to handwriting, that he or she has learned or have been taught handwriting. Students with dysgraphia may demonstrate difficulties in one or more of the following areas of writing. So we're going to see that they're going to struggle with handwriting and pencil grip. They can struggle with the letter formation. They could struggle with spelling, drafting, grammar and mechanics, writing automaticity, and written expression. Dysgraphia can be seen in both the physical act of writing and the quality of written expression. Lack of automaticity with letter formation, directionality, sound symbol relationships, and early spelling patterns. So this is the way we could see dysgraphia in all these areas. Just remember that spelling and written expression are secondary consequences when it comes to dysgraphia. Now we're going to look at the characteristics of dysgraphia. Students are going to demonstrate frustration or writing avoidance. We're going to see incomplete letter formation, illegibility or poor handwriting. We are not talking only about messy or sloppy handwriting. We are talking about quality of handwriting, letter formation. We can see students that are able to form their letters appropriately, but it takes them a lot of time to form the letter. So definitely, messy or sloppy handwriting could be one of the characteristics associated with dysgraphia, but it's not the only characteristic. It's not the gold standard for dysgraphia. Students with dysgraphia are also going to demonstrate unusual or dysfunctional pencil grip, the way they hold their pencil. It doesn't kind of work for them. That's why we call it dysfunctional. Their writing speed is going to be unusual. They're either going to write very slow because they're thinking about how to form that letter, or they're going to write very, very fast, which it's going to impact their handwriting and the quality of their handwriting. Their pencil pressure, it's going to be unusual, the how much pressure they put on the pencil. They're either going to put a lot of pressure to the point that they make a hole on the paper, or the pressure that they put on that pencil is so light that it's so hard to read. We could see spelling errors. We're going to see a mixture of capital and lowercase letters within words. We're going to see misuse of space between words and letters. They're going to struggle with anchoring the letters on the line. So we're going to see the letters that are swimming or floating on the line. They are going to demonstrate simple word choice that does not reflect their vocabulary abilities. So students with dysgraphia, they have great verbal abilities. So when they're talking, they can use very high vocabulary, but when they're writing, they prefer to use simple words because they're just easier to spell and it takes less time for them. Because remember, handwriting is a frustrating task for them. We could also see lack of punctuation, capitalization, and paragraph indentation. And definitely the written output does not match the oral language skills. I included this link in here. And it's just so we can have a better idea of what pencil grip looks like and what is correct and what is incorrect. So that is just for you to look at its different handwriting positions, and it gives you simple way to explain what you're seeing the student regarding the way they hold their pencil. Okay. Now we're going to do writing samples. This is my favorite part of the presentation. So I want you to keep in mind the characteristics that we just discussed, or if you have a copy of this presentation, have it right there next to you so you can be looking at those characteristics as we go through these writing samples. So I want you to take a look at this writing sample, and I want you to consider those characteristics. What do you see? So I want you to notice the inconsistency between the letter formation. Okay. Look at this. This is supposed to be a P, right? And it's reversed. Okay. This is supposed to be an R, right? And it looks like a V. It's open. We also see a mixture of lowercase and uppercase level letters. Then look at the spacing. Look at how much spacing we have here within these letters. And in here, not so much, right? And then look at the anchoring of the letters. They are not anchored to the line. They're kind of floating. And look at this A way over here, right? Okay, so now we will look at more writing samples. Kind of a disclaimer, it's very important to take into consideration that these writing samples are not the gold standard for dysgraphia. Not all students with dysgraphia will demonstrate the same characteristics. So this is just for you to have an idea of what dysgraphia looks like and to just look at the characteristics and see how those characteristics present the writing samples. Okay, so once you are in the process of referring a student for dysgraphia evaluation, or maybe you feel like there are some struggles with handwriting, I would encourage you to first look at this teacher writing rubric. Here's a link for the writing rubric. This is part of the purple folder, the dysgraphia referral purple folder. And what we want the teachers to do or the counselors to do is to gather 2 writing samples, and you are going to review and you're going to rate what you're seeing on the writing sample. You're going to review it based on these characteristics, okay? And this is very important because this gives us qualitative information and it gives us observations regarding what you're seeing that your student is struggling with handwriting, okay? So when you are completing the teacher writing rubric, I want you to pay special attention to the way the student holds the pencil, how they do with spacing, if the spacing is poor, is appropriate between the lines, the words and the letters. You are going to consider letter reversals. And remember, these reversals are going to be typical through first grade. Also consider hand dominance, if they have established, if they're writing with their right hand, if they're writing with their left hand, if you see that they switch hands, that's a very important observation. Then we're also going to look at if they're stabilizing the paper when they're writing, and overall, their body position and how they are doing with the handwriting task. Okay, so let's look at this third grader. He was referred due to concerns regarding handwriting. And I want you to notice, consider those characteristics that we learned and what characteristics are we seeing in here. So we're seeing the inconsistency between the sides, right, of the letters. We are seeing the mixture of capital and lowercase letters. Notice how the letters are not anchored on the line in here. In this one, he did a better job about putting the letters on the line, but in here, not so much, right? This one, he was supposed to copy the sentence, and he attempted to do it, but his letter formation struggles were so significant that he couldn't do it legibly. So some of the handwriting observations are make significant number of spelling errors, produces generally illegible writing, makes irregular, inconsistent letter sizes and formations, demonstrates difficulty staying in the lines, writes words with irregular spacing, writes mixture of upper and lowercase letters, and misuses lines and margins, and writes too large and makes letter reversals. This over here is the writing sample that we got from him. It was a writing prompt that we gave him. It's very hard to read, definitely illegible handwriting, definitely messy handwriting on this one. We can see the difficulties between spacing. There's a lot of space over here, not that much over here, okay? This one, the student only qualified in the area of handwriting. This is an 8th grader. He was referred for a dyslexia and dysgraphia evaluation. And I want you to look at his handwriting. What do you think about that handwriting? Right? It's not that bad. You can read it. It's somewhat legible, right? Let's see the handwriting observations. So his pencil grip was non-functional. He put a lot of pressure on the pencil. His spacing is inconsistent. Let's look at that in here. You see? Here, this is 2 words. It's supposed to be a script, and it's all together. In here, I talked, and it's all together. Missing capitalization. There were some letter reversals, frequent erasures. This student complained a lot about his hand hurting and him being tired because of the writing demand. He demonstrated overall difficulties with the mechanics of writing and difficulty with orthography. For eighth graders, it's expected to write 16 to 23 words per minute. He was only able to write 10.4 words. And when he was copying, he was only able to write 6 words. So his letter production and letter formation and his rate and accuracy was very, very impacted with dyslexia and dysgraphia. And his areas of struggle were spelling, handwriting, and orthography. Okay, here's a handwriting sample of a 4th grader. Let's see, what do we have in here? We have spelling difficulties, right? We have difficulties with letter formation. Let's see. See in here, look at this A, and look at this A over here. We have difficulties with spacing over here. This is supposed to be 3 words, and he has them all together, like 1 word. We're having some difficulties with anchoring the letters on the line. So he demonstrated an inconsistent pencil grip, difficulties with writing fluency, difficulties with orthography, frequent erasures. He was easily frustrated with writing demands. Okay, so his fluency, his writing fluency, so how quickly he could write was very impacted. It took him a long, long time to write sentences on his own and even when he was copying. So that's another characteristic that we have to consider, the rate and the automaticity when they're producing the letters. And again, it just comes down to that difficulty with the memory and remembering the way the letters are formed. Okay, this is a 5th grader. Parents were suspecting dysgraphia. There were high attention and distractibility issues. And let's just look at this writing sample. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to look at it. What do you see? Definitely difficulties with spacing, right? Look how spaced out these words are. Over here, we don't have that much difficulty with spacing, so there's some inconsistencies with spacing. We also have some inconsistencies with letter formation. This is supposed to be a W, so the letter is not finished, right? It's not formed completely. In here, we have a letter A, and then look at this one. So they don't look alike, and it's the same letter. So handwriting observations. This is right-handed. His pencil grip was variable. His pencil pressure was variable too. And we can observe that in here. Like in here, you see like the quality or the way you see the letters is light. You know, the pressure that he was putting on the pencil was definitely less than what he did in here. Look how dark this is over here. So that's why the pressure was variable. The spacing was definitely inconsistent. We saw that over here. And then look how it's in here, that is less spacing over there. He had some strikeovers, mixture of upper and lowercase letters. The letter forms were inaccurate. Irregular letter size, and here look at this and look at this T over here. So we're seeing some inconsistencies with the letter size and letter formation. But then the biggest problem with this student was the lack of task engagement and rushing behaviors. When we told this student that he needed to write for 5 minutes, he was like, oh my gosh, 5 minutes, that's a lot of time. And he needed a lot of reminders to stay on task and a lot of redirection. And there was a lot of rushing behaviors going on. Okay, I want you to take a look at this writing sample. Do you see any of those characteristics that we have discussed so far? Now let's take a look at this one again. Now let me ask you this. Do you think this is the same student? Yes, it is the same student. What's the difference? This one, he's on medication. On this one, he was without medication. So this student was identified as a student with attention deficit disorder. He was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. On this first one, there were attention concerns, but he was not diagnosed or on medication. Once the evaluation was completed, and yes, there were some indicators that could suggest dysgraphia, but the attention issues were so significant that at that time, a dysgraphia identification was not made. Once the student got diagnosed with attention deficit disorder and started medication, look at the difference. Look at the difference in the quality of that handwriting. Look at the spacing. It looks like a different student. All right. So all this to say that dysgraphia could definitely coexist with other disabilities, but it's very important when we have concerns about attention to explore further and see how the student does in different settings, in different scenarios. Because sometimes the rushing behaviors are so significant that they impact the performance, especially in handwriting. This is another writing sample. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to look over it, and then I'm going to read to you what it says. Okay, here we go. Hi, Robin asked me for a sample of my handwriting because I have dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is a term for learning disabilities that affect spelling and handwriting. I should probably point out that despite how my handwriting looks, I'm 26 and have a business degree from UPEI with a minor in economics. Like dyslexia, dysgraphia is a lifelong condition. And that's why it's very important to continue providing students with accommodations after treatment. Look at this writing sample. Student is 26 years old and he continues to struggle with handwriting. So that's why we need to continue providing students with accommodations. This is just a summary of all the areas that dysgraphia entails and how we can help our students. We have to remember that dysgraphia has to do with fine motor, that concentration, attention is a big piece when it comes to not only dysgraphia, but handwriting itself. So that's why dysgraphia is definitely more than messy handwriting. Okay, so now let's think about all this information that we have gotten. So far, we've learned about dysgraphia. We've learned about what it is. We've seen it through writing samples. So what do we do with this information? So let's say that you have concerns with one of your students having handwriting difficulties. So first thing we recommend is that you consider the grade level for that student. If the student is in kinder through first grade and is currently getting handwriting without tears for the first time, then maybe we should consider giving them the opportunity to be exposed to that curriculum and to learn that handwriting piece. Because remember that students with dysgraphia not only have average ability, but also have been exposed to handwriting. And after that exposure, their struggles with handwriting is unexpected because they know how to write the letters. It's just that they struggle forming those letters after they've been taught on how to do it. If the student is second grade, I would recommend that you look at the overall, of the handwriting difficulties, and maybe consider waiting until mid of the year or late of the year so they can get even more handwriting exposure. And it goes case by case. It will depend on, on all the characteristics that they are presenting. So second step, after you consider the grade level and you have decided that you want to learn, you want to know more about those characteristics, and you want to know if this possible will turn into a referral, I will encourage you to complete the writing rubric. That writing rubric has all the characteristics and give us qualitative information regarding what we're looking for when we're suspecting dysgraphia. When you're completing the writing rubric, it's very important to review the dysgraphia characteristics. Also, look at secondary consequences. Look at how is the spelling, how is the written expression. Then if after all this, you feel your ISD, your committee feels like a referral is warranted, then complete the teacher survey. And after that, it's very important that you consider the referral question, because sometimes we might see difficulties in handwriting only, but sometimes we see difficulties with handwriting and something else. So ask yourself, is dyslexia a concern as well? Because remember, dysgraphia could coexist with other disabilities like dyslexia, attention deficit disorder, specific learning disabilities. So after you consider the referral question, complete the referral paperwork, and we will start the assessment process. This is different links. These are different links to resources available to you. I strongly recommend understood.org. I feel like they do a very good job explaining not only to professionals but to parents as well what different disabilities, not only dysgraphia, different disabilities are and how they present. So I strongly recommend you to, if you have any questions or if you want to learn more about what dysgraphia is, to look at those links. If you have any more questions, any more concerns, feel free to reach out to either me, Cindy Ricks, which is our dyslexia facilitator, or Renee Rick, which is our director of special education and dyslexia department. I hope this presentation was very beneficial to you. And remember, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.